In today's Leeds news, Joe Piroe to Leeds, Amiri deal on, off, on again, and Daniel Farke's press conference. Hiya folks, Jer here on the 24th of August with your Leeds United news. Timestamp this at 11 AM because things will change rapidly today. We are going to cover Daniel Farke's press conference in a bit. That hasn't happened just yet, so we'll get to that the second half of this. But trying to update you on a couple of things. Two main stories, Joe Piroe and Nadiem Amiri to Leeds, which have changed an awful lot over the last 24 hours, and it's worth getting into this. We'll start off with Joe Piroe, by the way. This morning, the Mail Online have released a report stating that Leeds and Swansea have agreed a £12 million fee for the player. According to the Mail, the deal is done for the 24-year-old who is travelling to Leeds now for a medical. The Leeds had got competition from Piroe's ex-manager Russell Martin over at Southampton, who were said to be very, very interested in the player. However, their move for the player was dependent on Che Adams moving to Everton or moving out on loan as quick as possible. Everton have had a massive problem this morning with one of their major new financiers pulling out of his deal to finance the club, which means that they're now in a more serious position with financial fair play and they cannot currently afford to finance a deal for Che Adams. That means then Southampton are out of the race for Piroe, according to the article. Now this afternoon, Fabrizio Romano has also tweeted, and what he has said is that a deal between Leeds and Swansea has indeed been agreed and that a medical is now set for the player. Romano states that this could be done by the end of the week. So Romano states that the deal could be done by the end of the week. Key thing is we've been here before. 2 weeks ago, we were in the same position on a Thursday with a press conference coming up with Max Aarons, and that fell through. This is now public information that a deal has been agreed. A fee has been announced, so Leeds need to move rapidly to get a medical and a signature done before anybody else gets involved in this deal, because there will be competition. People will see this, and Leeds have already been gazumped once this transfer window. Speaking of gazumped and possibly not gazumped, and then maybe again, this is a really weird one, but last night a report came out from Fabrizio Romano that Leeds had bid for Leverkusen's attacking midfielder Nadiem Amiri. Came out of nowhere, absolutely out of the blue, hasn't been linked with Leeds all summer, which would be the 49ers, as they call it, their modus operandi on this one. So, However, this morning everyone woke up to some very bad news. According to Florentin Plettenberg, he tweeted that the player had snubbed Leeds in favour of Marseille and will instead be heading to France to complete a medical there. Now, it's changed again this afternoon, but I would say take all of this with a massive pinch of salt until it's a bit more credible and we start hearing some people like Graham Smith or Phil Hay or Adam Pope start talking about this. But what's happened is Kicker in Germany, an online publication, have put out an article and they claim that Amiri has agreed a deal with Leeds and is heading to Leeds United. They claim that the player has signed or will sign a 4-year contract at the club of a deal that could be in and around £6 to £8 million, which is not a huge amount of money considering the player. Kicker claimed that Amiri didn't turn Leeds down and is heading to Leeds for a medical shortly. Marseille are said to have actually pulled out of this deal and they have moved their attentions towards Joachim Carrera at AC Milan instead. The article finishes by saying, don't be surprised if there is another turnaround or a surprise in this deal, as Amiri and his agent, who is his brother, are not the easiest to deal with in negotiation terms. They drive hard bargains and there could still be more interest in this player outside of this. Again, they could look to do that. However, they do then say currently there is no signs of this happening and it should be okay. And as I said, a fee of something between £6 to £8 million, probably with add-ons included in that, has been agreed for the player. Now, outside of Joe Piroe, that's fine. I haven't seen Florentin Plettenberg or Fabrizio Romano tweet about Amiri just yet. This could be early, and we haven't heard anything from local journalists either. What I would say about Joe Piroe stuff is the Mail Online, I've got it right again, it appears. That's nearly every single major story that Leeds have put out this summer, or I've completed this summer, has come initially from the Mail Online a couple of days before. So a newspaper wouldn't have given a huge amount of credibility to before, but if you look at what's happened, they've called the 49ers takeover announcement as in principle 2 weeks before it happened. They called the completion of the takeover a week beforehand. They had Daniel Farke done. They've had an inside Leeds United when Parag Murthy was addressing the staff. They were there behind the scenes on that as well. Same with Max Aarons and the same with Ethan Ampadu as well. So they've been on the money pretty much with everything so far. So interesting to see where this goes. As I said, given what's gone on this window, and not just with Leeds, this has happened to tons of clubs, Premier League and Championship, where other clubs have nipped in the last second and nicked the player after all the legwork had been done by the clubs to agree fees. We'll have to keep an eye on this over the next 24, 48 hours. I'd be shocked if Daniel Farke comments on this in the press conference, which we'll cover in a couple of minutes now anyway. So we'll leave this there for now, and we'll come back after a very brief break for you, a couple of hours for me, couple of breaks for you, and then we'll get back in with the press conference reaction and news about the team. Willy Gnonto will be a topic of conversation, as will Luis Sinisterra for this one as well. So I'll see you in a sec. Right, Daniel Farke's press conference has just finished, and as you'd expect, he's talked for ages. He's talked for ages. Pages and pages of notes trying to keep up with them. I admire what Baron Cross, Phil Hay, Adam Pope, all the people there as well, Catherine Hanna at BBC, do in that press office to try and keep up the speed. I know they record stuff, but to regurgitate it as quickly and as accurately as they do is impressive. So we'll get into this. Before we do, I just want to update you on a couple of stories that we had in the first half of this video. Florentine Plettenberg has just tweeted about Nadiem Amiri. What he has said, and I'll read it directly off the screen, is turnaround for Nadiem Amiri. Had rejected the possibility to join Leeds and wanted to join Marseille as reported. Leeds have been informed about the decision, but Leverkusen and Marseille haven't found an agreement. Instead, Bayern 04 and Leeds are close to finding an agreement now. The transfer fee around 5 to 6 million euros. That's about 4.2 to 5.5 million pounds plus add-ons, which is a bargain. Amiri is very open to join Leeds now, and Daniel Farke wants some, so we'll have to. And again, they're citing Kicker as the source for this. So anyway, let's get into the press conference, because I'll skim over a lot of it because it's not important, and we'll get to the meaty bits that we want to talk about. And we'll start off with this. He was asked about Ipswich flying start to the season, and he basically said, when you get promoted, you've got confidence, so you would expect that as well. They're the team of the moment, but we have to continue to build on the performances that we've put in over the last couple of weeks and see if we can do better. The rest of the press conference was dominated by Luis Sinisterra, incomings, and Willy Gnonto. So we'll start with this. Willy Gnonto back in. Sinisterra is also back involved with the group in training as well, as is Leo Hjelde. And there is some concerns over Dan James, who might miss the game but might not also. It's not confirmed. He has an adductor injury, which is similar to what I think Paveda has as well. It's a light injury for Joffy as well. He came off with a shoulder problem last weekend, but he said he's trained all week. No major issues, but just something to keep an eye on. Asked about Joel Piroe coming in and the possibilities of medical today, he said what we expect him to say. He won't talk about players who are under contract with other clubs, and we speak about our business when it's done. End of story. That's that. Asked about was there frustrations around the numbers he has in the squad and the incomings, he said he's not been frustrated at any point. He said he's just been vocalising what he understands the situation to be. Hasn't bothered him. He said we just do what we do and we carry on with what we have and we see how well we can do. And he said but we do want to strengthen the squad and we have players coming back in now, which makes it better, and hopefully some incomings as well. There's a couple of Freudian little slips by Farke. He talked about not wanting to bring players in, but then he said in this piece also we'll have some incomings, which made me think that maybe there is something. He had a little smirk on his face as well. But he said we are in a stronger position than we were last week. We've improved the situation with the players that were out of the group being back in. And he said we have a long road, but it's we're more competitive now than we would have been. On the, again, any new arrivals before the weekend, he said we'll have to wait and see. But if we are convinced of a player's quality and we look at him, we'll move quickly to get him done. But I can't guarantee any players will be in before the weekend's game. So again, just keep an eye on that one. Not saying they won't be. He's saying just wait and see. He has to say that after what happened with Max Aarons. He has to. Catherine Hanna asked him about what changed with Gnonto and Sinisterra's situation. He said the first thing to get clear is the situations between Willy Gnonto and Sinisterra were different. He said the Sinisterra thing was a legal issue that Farke made the decision to take him out of the group because it was distracting to the player and it was distracting to him. So he said while this was going on and while they were trying to sort it out, he just removed him from the group, removed him from the squads in order to get it sorted out. So a very different situation there. In terms of Gnonto, we said it's sorted, different topic, different situations. There's no clauses, loans or otherwise in the player's contract. And he said we didn't want to let him go and that was it. And he refused to play. And he said it out loud, he refused to play. And he said I separated from the squad. Some people will say this is throwing a player under the bus, as has been said before about players who refuse to play for Leeds, but I think it's an important thing to make the point. He said this is how he handles situations. He'll do it privately one-on-one with the player, then he'll do it in front of the squad, which he did by removing him from the squad, and then he'll do it in front of the press. So that's how he works. He said we can't let this distract us from our games. He said at the beginning of the week, Gnonto came to him on his own. He said he apologised for what has done. accepted that he'd taken some bad advice, said he'd made a mistake. Farke says that Angus Kinnear and the owners were hugely important in the conversations that were having with the player on this, and he really appreciates the help. He said he liked the situation himself. He said the apology, and now Gnonto wants to play. He said he's 100% ready to play, but he'll have to fight to get back in the squad and then fight to try and put in really good performances in training to get back in the starting 11 or come off the bench. Then Catherine asked him, is he mentally ready enough to deal with the fans who may boo him when he comes onto the pitch? And he said, look, in general, we speak about a 19-year-old. And he said, I understand that he was attracted by interest from Serie A, from the Bundesliga and from the Premier League. He's 19. He's getting some bad advice. But he said, if he gets offers from Serie A, he's an international player as well. You can understand to a degree that his head might be turned a little. But he said, it's not professional to make yourself unavailable for games. And he's not happy with that. And he says, now he has to show some steel and deal with it. He said that he's grateful for all the support that he got from Angus and the owners as well. They said they've been brilliant in the talks, but when a player behaves like this, a club can't be blackmailed. And he said, so we increased our price from 20 million to 30 million, which I love. Thought that was great. He said he's relaxed on the topic. He said it's not about the names of the players, the number on the back. It's not about any of that stuff, the salaries, the transfer fees, none of that. He said Leeds need to be in the driving seat. He said we are Leeds United and we can't be blackmailed by anyone. And this was about sending a message to players in the squad, young players and other clubs that Leeds won't be walked on in terms of players, which again, love it. Exactly what we wanted to hear. He said that the situation to remove Gnonto from the squad was his call and his call alone. He said he's a 19-year-old and he said, I made mistakes at 19 and I don't want to talk about the mistakes that I made as a 19-year-old. I said this yesterday on Twitter. I look back at my Facebook page from when I was 20, 21 because yes, it did exist then. And some of the stuff that I put on Facebook back then, I'm embarrassed by it now. So people do change, and I made a lot of mistakes as a player when I was 19. I walked out of clubs I shouldn't have walked out of. You know, people make stupid calls. He said everyone's made mistakes, but he has got bad advice. He keeps emphasising the bad advice situation about his agent. But he said we all wished that he'd behaved differently, but we understand why his head was turned. So again, on the boos, he said players live a privileged life and we can't get away from that. He said they can't have all the money, all the praise and all the success and not then deal with the failures and the punishments from the fans. He said Willie has made the right first steps in apologising. The second steps will be about impressing in training and getting into the team. And he says if he gives everything, we should all have it. We should all give second chances. But if he gives everything, grabs the shirt, makes a performance on the pitch, we can get over this and move past it. He said he has to give everything for the shirt. He said, asked about whether, from Phil Hay, whether he was convinced Sinisterra would still be here after the window. He said, I'm convinced that we need his quality. But then he said, but I can't guarantee anything. We could get a £200 million offer from Saudi or Real Madrid in the morning and that'll be that. You know, so he said things can change. Asked about availability of Ian Poveda and Stuart Dallas situation. He said Dallas is still far away from being available. So we can figure that one. It's a very bad injury. People need to realise how bad a broken femur is and how much pressure it takes to break a femur. It's incredible. Like your femur is pretty much made out of concrete, and if it breaks, it takes a long time to reset. And then he's had a couple of follow-up operations to clean up the area as well. So it has to be taken into consideration. He said on Ian Poveda, he said it'll probably be next week before he's back. He hasn't trained this week with the injury that he has, but he should be back in time for next week's games. Asked how did the team react to Willie and Sini coming in? He said professional. They're all happy to have them back. He said, but now we wait and see if we get a reaction on the pitch. He said we're not too far away from bringing in some new players, he said, but trust me, I'll only bring in players that are important and can make the team better. And he said, I sign off on every single player. So not only am I coaching, I'm also watching a ton of players as well because I have to make the final decision. He said that he feels sorry for Greta and for Nick Hammond because while Daniel gets to distract himself with some stuff off the pitch, these guys have to deal with all the contract situations and everything else that's going on in the club every single minute of every single day. And it's very tough for them. He said, but they're doing a great job and he really appreciates them. But he said, I'll make the call on the players that come in. I'll watch the player and I'll make the final decision. He said, then he was asked, are we under control of the transfer market now? Do we think we are? And again, he said the same thing. Every single day we get closer to the window closing, and it can't close soon enough. We're in a stronger position. He said, we are in a situation, he said, with the contracts and the clauses that we had to deal with. That wasn't ideal, he said, but now we're in a situation where it was complicated, and it's still complicated, but he said we have more windows coming up that will make things easier. And he said, and when the end of this window finishes, we can focus on the football then again. And then the other windows in the future will be less complicated. Not exactly not complicated, but less complicated. So that's it, folks. There you go. That's the thing. It's an interesting one. We should see Sinisterra and Gnonto involved in the squad for Ipswich, which is great to see. You then possibly add the possibilities of Amiri and Piroe to that as well. And now you're starting to look like a decent squad, but they have to come in for me. They have to start coming in, and we need to see positive noise in the next 2 days around both of these signings. And again, as I said in the first half of the video, we need to be rapid on this. Anyway, have a great day. I'll update you in the morning to see what's going on. Have a fantastic evening, and I'll talk to you tomorrow. Bye.